Speedway Report is produced and broadcast by the Zeus Radio Network for Racers Reunion Radio. Well, down in Mexico, a championship was decided with still 2 races to go. Meanwhile, here at home in Martinsville, Virginia, the round of 8 in NASCAR battles down to 4, with 1 driver already locked into the Homestead finale. And the World of Outlaws are coming to town here in Charlotte to wrap up their season. We've got all this and more. Welcome, everybody, to Speedway Report, Monday, October 29th, 2018, from the shores of Lake Norman in Race City, USA, Mooresville, North Carolina. I'm Patrick Reynolds. Thank you for joining the fastest half hour in racing on Halloween Eve. I'm a big Halloween fan. Yay. Looking forward to it. Candies, costumes, got the joint decorated with lots of ghosts and goblins. Kind of love this time of year. Yeah, I know. I'm a summer fan. Like the heat. Don't like call me weird, don't like the cold weather. But yeah, the holidays, they're always fun. And I'm a big fan of Halloween. As we approach Scary Day on Wednesday, had a lot of action still here through the fall, going deep into the calendar year. So let's jump right into the Speedway Report Victory Lane Lap. Tell you who won what. The Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series, about 2 hours up the road from us in Martinsville, Virginia. You all know by now that Joey Logano won the 500-lap race yesterday. We'll talk a lot about that tonight. The truck race on Saturday, the series went 200 laps, and Johnny Sauter was your winner on Saturday afternoon. NASCAR's K&N Pro Series West Tour raced in Kern County Raceway Park in Bakersfield, California. Derek Thorne took the win of the race and took the championship. Let's see, Johnny Sauter in trucks, Derek Thorne, K&N Pro Series West. Yep, have had both of them on this show as guests before. Who I have not had as a guest on this show, I would love to. Had a great down in Mexico as Red Bull's Max Verstappen won the Formula One race in 4th place. Off the podium in his Mercedes, but still in 4th. Lewis Hamilton scored enough points to clinch his 5th world championship over Sebastian Vettel. NHRA was on the strip in Las Vegas, and they still have a countdown to 1. They adopted that a little bit out of NASCAR's system, and yet still we have a clincher before the season finale. In Top Fuel, Steve Torrence has run the table in their playoffs, in the countdown they call it. He has gone 5 for 5 in Top Fuel, and he clinched the championship before even the final round. So he's heading to Pomona in a couple weeks. Championship all sewn up for 2018. And Funny Car Year winner was J.R. Todd. Bo Butner won in Pro Stock, and Hector Arana Jr. won in Pro Stock Motorcycle. Now, the Tuscarora 50 for the World of Outlaws Sprint Cars has been one of the toughest events to get in on the calendar year. Originally scheduled for September, it was rained out on a Saturday night and pushed to Sunday evening, where it was rained out again, put to elsewhere in the calendar. So they put it for this past Saturday night. Dang, it was rained out again for the 3rd time. Finally ran the event yesterday afternoon at Port Royal. The Tuscarora 50, $51,000 to the winner, worth the wait for Donnie Schatz. Nice paycheck there for only 50 laps, 51 grand. If you had a guess who would win it, yeah, he'd be my guess. Up in the Northeast, even furthermore than Port Royal, the Pass North Tour raced in Seekonk, Massachusetts. They had a rain out from Saturday for and pushed to yesterday afternoon. The Tri-Track Championship for the Modifieds was also settled yesterday. Travis Benjamin won the 150-lapper for the Pass North Super Late Models. DJ Shaw finished 7th and clinched his 3rd title in Pass North. And the Haunted 100 for the Pavement Modifieds was won by Big Money Matt Hirschman. $6,000 for yesterday's 100-lap checkered flag. Also clinched the championship for him. Now, goodness, what are we going to talk about tonight? Well, you know, what do you think? One of the biggest topics, which stemmed from, yesterday's Cup race down in Martinsville, or up in Martinsville, I should talk about. What am I looking for here? Oh, yeah. Oh, those 2 guys. Yeah, I had to look at my notes to even remember what the heck happened. Joey Logano and Martin Truex Jr. at Martinsville in the Cup race. I tried not to instantly default to the Cup race, wherever it was over the weekend, for the big story. But there was a lot happening between, to me, the Mexican race in Formula One and the Martinsville race in NASCAR, as well as I'll throw in the Top Fuel run by Steve Torrence in NHRA. First of all, let's start with Logano and Martin Truex Jr. Logano led so much of the race at Martinsville yesterday. Truex started 33rd, came from deep in the pack, was strong enough, came up and charged and challenged Logano really hard for the lead and for the win. And goodness, turnabout was not fair play. I was looking at how the big contact, or the big story here, I guess. We know the drill. Truex got the lead on the final lap, worked his way around Logano, and Logano put the bumper to him in turn 3, moved him up out of the way. Everybody came sliding across the finish line. Logano, your winner. Truex back to 3rd as Denny Hamlin snuck in there for 2nd. And I look at two things. I look at a lot of things, but the first 2 things I will look at was how Truex raced Logano. It's the first piece of my puzzle as I analyze this, and I'm going to give you guys my thoughts. Truex really passed Logano. I'm not saying that there wasn't contact, but he did not use the bumper to ever shove him out of the way. The bumper was on his Truex's front bumper on Logano's rear. They were alongside each other. They traded paint, but Truex never shoved Logano out of the way to try to win the race. Passed him, worked him, passed him. Had lots of times we could have bumped him, spun him, sent him into the fence, never wrecked him. But on the final lap, you got Truex leading going into turn 3, and Logano just squared up with him and put the bumper to Truex, shoved him right out of the way and came across and, got underneath him, went on to win the race. And that's where the disconnect, or part of the disconnect, comes from, was how Truex raced Logano for the win at the end of the race versus how Logano raced Truex just for the final half lap of the race. I got to tell you, back in my day, I didn't see so much. We talk about this every so many weeks on this show, of the bump and runs, the rubbing his racing, I don't know. I don't know what to call it anymore. This sport has really lost a lot of what I used to see of more racing. What we used to see, or what I used to see out of Dale Earnhardt growing up, was he was the guy that did this. Got the reputation as the intimidator, endeared to some fans and hated by others. He got the reputation as the greatest driver. He also got the reputation as the dirtiest driver. He had both, depending on what side of the fence you were looking on. But he stood out amongst the entire field of the guy that would put the bumper to you, of the guy that would move you out of the way. Nobody else in the field really had that reputation. People, it happened from time to time. People did it. Ricky Rudd, Tim Richmond, Davey Allison, Bill Elliott. There was contact in this and that, but Earnhardt had a style that was different than everybody else's, and he stuck the nose in there, and he didn't care if the nose got into you and his bumper got into you and bumped you out of the way. He didn't care. He raced to win. And nobody else, I thought, raced like that. I certainly didn't see that in my Saturday night heroes growing up in the modifieds, where we had a handicap start, the fast guys start in the back. You had a 25-lap feature. Goodness gracious, on a third-mile track in open-wheel modifieds, of course you had contact. Of course you had bumping. But I just don't recall what is accepted nowadays is this bump and run of guys using the front bumper as a passing mechanism, as a style of driving. I never saw that as a kid. I didn't say guys didn't bump. I didn't say paint wasn't traded. I said guys didn't use that front bumper as a technique, as a method of passing. I don't remember it. I don't see it. Maybe some of the guys closer to my age can refresh my memory of it. Of maybe, I don't know. I just saw guys with so much more respect for each other growing up as I do now. And I lean back on the Bugsy Stevens book, how we go back to these cliche quotes nowadays of, dude, what I have to do, Rubbin's racing, the short track racing, and on and on and on. And Bugsy Stevens takes that quote. I had heard it before, Bugsy Stevens' method, but you can attribute it to him because it's in print, where he says you didn't do what you had to do. You did what you wanted to do. And this is a book. It's simply titled Bugsy. I'd recommend it from coastal181.com. But it's true to that. And you get guys that I saw growing up, and guys today would rather win a race than have their character or their reputation intact. And I think the guys I saw racing were concerned with their character and their reputation, and concerned with how they won a race as opposed to just how many races that they won. Mark Martin comes to mind. He always said over and over, I will race you how I want you to race me. In that when you're behind me trying to pass me, I'm going to race you the same way. He always tried to pass clean, and was famous for saying, or I'm paraphrasing here too, is that if I got to shove a guy out of the way or move him out of the way, I don't want the win. I don't deserve it. I should finish second. I couldn't agree more. That's how I feel nowadays. And what we saw yesterday at Martinsville, there's a ton of people hating on Logano. There's a ton of people loving on Logano. But this is somewhat of an accepted practice. And I've become very disconnected over the years with the Cup Series and how it's run. And just the bump and run to me is an extremely candy-ass move. You move a guy out of the way, that's not racing. I didn't like it when Dale Earnhardt did it. Over the years, a lot of very talented people have done this. They've got wins on their resume. We go over, Matt Kenseth and Joey Logano, the great ones, Jeff Gordon, Kyle Busch, Carl Edwards. We can go on and on. Denny Hamlin. They all used the bumper at some point and moved a guy out of the way. I never took a liking to this. I never have. I never will. You race. You don't knock a guy out of the way. This is, people say, they go to the well with the cliches. Well, that's short track racing. Well, that's, this is stock car racing. This is NASCAR. This is how we grew up. This is not how I grew up. This is not old school. I grew up, guys literally passed each other. They didn't use that front bumper. Sure, plenty of contact, but the bumper was not a passing mechanism. It wasn't a technique. And these guys nowadays, that is almost their first option when they get to someone. They get to the front. They catch the guy, get to his rear bumper. That's it. They use the bumper, knock him out of the way. And I see no difference in moving a guy out of the way and wrecking him. As far as the win goes, as far as your win, you had the same amount of character either way. Now, the guy on the receiving end of it has got a lot of repairs to do to his car, got a lot of money he's gotten to invest in it, so it's a big difference to him. But the win itself is tainted either way. There's mugging guys and there's contact. And what I saw Logano do yesterday is just, you didn't try to pass him. There was nothing left. Truex got around him. We were going into the third turn on the last lap, and some guys, they're just that way. They're going to take the front bumper, put it to him, move the guy out of the way, or wreck him or spin him or whatever, and they're going to go on and win the race and not care and shrug their shoulders and say, oh, well. The guys I grew up watching just had more character than that. They cared about each other more. They cared about how they won a race as opposed to just winning the race. And gosh, over the past 24 hours, I've heard about every cliche you can do. If you quote Days of Thunder one more time, I'll slit my wrists. That's a horrible racing movie. It doesn't portray racing properly. Rubbing is not racing. Shut up. No, it's not. It's awful. So give me a Mark Martin over a Dale Earnhardt any day. I'd rather have Martin's character in how he won races as opposed to just throwing the bumper to somebody. I don't get it. I don't. Now, all that being said, I'll tell you what, the ending of the Martinsville race, yeah, it was exciting. I'll admit it. It was extremely exciting. But I don't look at Joey Logano with a big wow factor as to how good he is. Where I would look at a Bugsy Stevens and go, wow, that guy is really good. Now, the format we have for this stupid playoff puts drivers in that position where it's a win at all costs. It's kind of like Death Race 5000, and speaking of other bad racing movies, but they get there. It's like the Hunger Games on four wheels, where you've got to win in these next three races to make it to Miami as a championship contender. And with that four-way, the system that they got now, which I'm not a fan of that either. So we've got a lot going on in NASCAR that I'm not jumping on board with. It was I don't know. It's a horse crap way of winning a race. It's I don't like the driving. It's these guys are supposed to be good, and I'm not impressed. You're not putting butts in the seats, as we've seen now for several years. And the playoff system somewhat looks at that, where maybe a driver would have taken the points and done the math as opposed to that. Yet on the flip side of that, so to speak, we'll go south as far as the Southern Stock Car race in Virginia is. We'll go further south down to Mexico, where the World Championship was decided by the system they have was just, like most folks, a season-long points total. And Lewis Hamilton finished fourth yesterday, where there's 2 races left in the Formula One Tour, with Brazil and Abu Dhabi still to go. And Hamilton cleansed the championship. Yeah, we've got this 4-way tie coming in Miami. I'm not waving the flag for the NASCAR 4-way tie in Miami. Lewis Hamilton is a legit champion to me. He won if you clinch a mathematical championship with 2 races to go, you earned it and you got a proper auto racing title. This playoff system in NASCAR is so WWE. It is so contrived. It is awful. It is awful how they do this. This is a circus and a joke every year. We've got a playoff system at NHRA, and Steve Torrence still clinched the championship with 1 race to go. So I don't know. I hope NHRA does not hop on board this NASCAR bandwagon and make an artificial excitement tie thing like this mess we've got going on heading into Homestead here in a few weeks. This is when people talk about the racing of Logano and Truex, and they say what Logano did is old school NASCAR. I say, no, it isn't. The Latford system was just fine, and how we did that when we totaled a point system all year. Lewis Hamilton, to me, I get the idea that he's clinched the championship with 2 races to go, and fans want a shootout at the last race. But you can't have that. You can't have the Super Bowl tied at the 2-minute warning every single year. It doesn't work like that. You've got to let sports play out. I was talking with John Dodson earlier today, and he was on the Blue Max crew where Rusty Wallace won those championships, and Tim Richmond drove the 27 too. And Rusty won a couple of nail-biting, he won a close championship on the Latford system over Dale Earnhardt, and he lost one to Bill Elliott in a very close system. We had the 1992 Hooters 500 under the Latford system. Yeah, we had a few years there where Earnhardt and a few guys clinched it before the final race of the year, or they barely had to start the last race of the year in order to win the championship. But that system also gave us some wonderful, wonderful finishes for the championship. And now we've got this artificial 4-way tie going into Miami. I'm just not on board with this bump and run. Cup racing has left this guy in the dust. Must-see TV, in the 80s when I was growing up, is now I'll watch it if I got nothing else going on Sunday afternoons. I follow it for the case of the show and from a journalistic integrity standpoint, but I am not on board with today's NASCAR and what they're doing. The stages, this playoff system, they shrug your shoulders and say, well, that's how we race nowadays with the bump and run, is terrible. Oh my God, this sport is awful compared to what I grew up. Congratulations to Lewis Hamilton. You won a legitimate championship. And no congratulations to the Cup, because the Cup title, this is not your guys' fault, but the last legit one you had was Matt Kenseth in 2003. And you've had nothing but jokes since. Even Steve Torrence, you had a playoff system. You still clinched it with 1 race to go. Good for you, dude. That's how racing is. You're supposed to work hard, kick everybody's tail, be better than them, be faster than them. That's how it should be. And just the way NASCAR is going nowadays, if this system and all these things are so great, why aren't we selling out seats like we used to? You saw the empty seats at Martinsville. They used to all be filled. Nobody overbuilt a racetrack, for crying out loud. All these seats used to be full. Where did everybody go? Look at the product you're displaying. Look at what you're doing. You don't have a decent championship, and you're letting guys mug guys for a win and getting away with it. This does not make me want to tune into Texas next week. Sorry, guys. You feel free to change up your sport. I'd love to be president of NASCAR for a week. I change a lot of things back to where they were. And I think you give me 15 years, the way they wrecked the sport the last 15 years, I bet I could right the ship and put it in a better direction. Before we get out of here tonight, I want to have a special tip of the hat to Bob Judkins, who passed away last week. Legendary New England car owner. He was suffering from Parkinson's disease recently, and word come out that the end was probably near. Last week it happened. He's the famed owner of the truex NASCAR modified team. Nearly everybody who was his driver won races. We're looking at the list of New England legends: Gene Bergen, Steady Eddie Flemke, Ronnie Bouchard, Bugsy Stevens, Fats Caruso, Billy Harmon, Jerry Marquis, Reggie Ruggiero, so many more. All of these drivers, they're in the New England Auto Racing Hall of Fame. Bobby Judkins in the New England Auto Racing Hall of Fame. Now, younger fans are going to know Bobby Judkins as the grandfather of Ryan Preece, but to an old schooler like me, that 2X was just a staple in all the NASCAR modified races that I used to go to. His cars won down in Florida, New Smyrna, up to Maine and Oxford, all up and down the East Coast. Bobby Judkins, rest in peace. A big part of my childhood with the 2X and the NASCAR modifieds. This weekend coming to Charlotte, I will be at the World of Outlaw World Finals at Dirt Track. I'll be wearing the Speedway Report shirt, just like the logo over my shoulder here. That'll be in my sweatshirt. It'll be chilly. Look for me. Please tap me on the shoulder and say hi if you are in town for the Charlotte World of Outlaws World Finals. We got sprint cars, late models, and the big block modifieds. But in between our broadcasts, keep up on the world of racing with SpeedwayReport.com. This show and all of our past ones are uploaded onto the site. We've got some racing articles to read. You want to catch some past podcasts. We're on Facebook on the Speedway Report with Patrick Reynolds page. I'm on the Racers Reunion page. On Twitter, I'm at Speedway Pat and at Speedway Report. And if you go to racersreunion.com, we are in the forum. Podcasts of this are also on Google+, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Big thanks to everyone on the Facebook live feeding for joining the conversation about the show. Love to hear what you thought about the Logano truex incident. If you disagree with me, cool. If you agree with me, cool. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please chime in and send me a note. Go see a race at a track near you. There's a few still running. If your local track is still running, take in a race before the winter sets in, because in spite of all we complain about the racing, in a month we'll all be complaining it's cold, it's inside. I can't wait for racing to start. Big thanks to the military, past and present, for the freedoms we enjoy as Americans in our daily life, including simple things like bench racing here on a Monday. Freedom is not free. And a veteran paid that bill for us. To all of the men and women who are defending freedom and watching Speedway Report, take care of yourselves and come home soon. A special salute to the teachers, school staff, firefighters, police officers, and paramedics in our own communities. They are quiet and modest heroes every single day. God bless and thank you. You have been watching Speedway Report from the shores of Lake Norman in Race City, USA, Mooresville, North Carolina. Please like our Facebook page, Speedway Report with Patrick Reynolds, and you can follow me on Twitter at SpeedwayPat. Now, if you're on Facebook, head on over to the drag racing list page, because Racing and Rockin' is coming up next. Bill Pratt, Johnny, and Barb will be there with some cool music and some drag racing chat. We'll be back live here on Facebook in 1 week, Monday, November the 5th. We'll look at NASCAR Cup in Texas, USAC Sprints in Arizona, and the World of Outlaws World Finals here in Charlotte. Thanks for joining us tonight. Happy Halloween, everybody, and I'll see y'all next time.